back to the channel. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Legacy Wreck and Roll Collection Fossilizer Spindle. Before we take a look at the figure, let's take a look at the packaging. So on the front here, of course, we have Spindle and Impactor looking very cool in battle with some buildings behind them. Of course, at the very bottom, we have the Legacy logo and the Wreck and Roll Collection text. And of course, Transformers on the side, and of course, their names at the very top. If we go to the side here, we have the Decepticon Legacy artwork. And if we go to the very back, Impactor transforms in 19 steps, and his review should be up on the channel very, very soon. And Spindle transforms in 28 steps. And on the other side here, of course, we have the Autobot Legacy artwork, and that is pretty much it for the packaging. Let's now get into this. Here we have Spindle in his really cool looking Spinosaurus mode. Let's take a look at the details. We're going to start at the very front with that head sculpt, of course, looking very nice with the gold for the top jaw, some purple for the bottom. Of course, you can see the teeth are done in some silver and purple, looking very nice. At that neck section, of course, some nice brown or bronze, looking very, very nice. For this huge spine section done in purple, really well sculpted. Of course, we also do have the rib cage there done at nice gold, and of course in between those little sections you can see some black as well. For this bottom section, it's a very loose panel, unfortunately. There's some nice detail here, some gunmetal gray, some silver and yellow. Almost looks like a skull, looking very cool. Getting to little dino arms, really well sculpted, very creepy and thin, done in purple, looking very, very cool. Getting to that tail section, some nice gold, brown, and bronze, looking very nice. And of course, getting to the legs, they're very skinny and bony, looking very realistic and cool. I really do like how they did the feet. That looks really nice and creepy. That's pretty much it for details. Let's now get into articulation. For the articulation, we're going to start at the very back with the tails. There is a hinge here, also a swivel here, and of course at the very back here. Let's get to the leg. I'm just going to hinge this out like this. So there is a hinge here, also a swivel. There's also a swivel here, and of course a swivel here. There's also a swivel here, and a hinge back and forth. You can also collapse the toes if you want to as well. And that's pretty much it for the legs. I do apologize if any pieces pop off. Unfortunately, my copy, there's quite a few loose joints. At the little arms, there's a ball joint, and for the mouth, you can really just open and close it. And that is pretty much it for articulation. Let's now get into some comparisons. Starting off our comparisons here, we have Spindle and Paleotrex. Of course, Paleotrex is the original version of this mold from Kingdom Wave 1. Starting off with the similarities, as you can see, of course, the whole tail design is the exact same sculpt, as well as the leg design is the exact same sculpt. And if you can see with the rib cage, that is exactly the same. If we go under, that whole panel piece is a brand new sculpt from this one to that one. And some other differences, as you can see, of course, for the dino head, that is completely different, as well as the little dino arms. And the whole spine section is completely gone from this version, and of course present on this one. And another really interesting tidbit I found, so of course the head is pretty much permanently a part of the Spindle figure. It actually is attached to the top jaw of the Dinosaur mode, so of course it is removable, but it's really needed for the Dinosaur mode. But as for Paleotrex, you can actually have the robot mode head off to the side. Of course, you can put it in there. It's really supposed to fill in some holes for the dino head, because some people didn't like that, but I typically do just leave it off to the side, so that's kind of an interesting tidbit. One really needs the robot mode head to function as the alt mode, one really doesn't. Let's now get into some other comparisons of this mold. Here he is with Skelevor. Hopefully that's the right name. This was, of course, from the Netflix line, a spoiler pack that came with Megatron. And for the last one, here he is with Transmutate, the Selects figure, also part of this mold. So as for these three, they're the exact same thing in this alt mode right here. There is no changes in mold, really. It's just where the robot mode is, where there's a slight change in head sculpt. But of course, as it is, they do look very, very cool next to each other. Probably my favorite has to be Spindle, then Paleotrex. Let me know of these four figures here, which one is your favorite. That's pretty much it for comparisons. Let's now get into the weaponized mode. So of course, if you don't know, you can actually break Spindle up into several different pieces and create weapons out of them, and of course put them on your figure. So we're going to go that next, and then of course we'll get into robot mode. Now get into the weaponizer mode. So what you're going to want to do is take the legs, separate these right here, just like that, and then what you're going to want to do is pretty much just straighten these out, just like this, and then you can get the toes, just close these up to make sort of a hand. Do the same thing on the other side, just like that, and there we go. We have those done. We can put those off to the side. You can then get this armor piece. You can also put that off to the side because we're not going to change it at all. We can go to the ribcage section. You can untab this. As you can see, there is a tab and a slot right there. You can remove that. And then what you're going to get is this middle section right here. You can rotate this all the way around and pretty much just flatten this whole assembly like this. You can then bring up the dino arms and of course put these however you wish, like that. And then you can get these claw sections and plug these into place. Same thing for the other one. Plug that into place, and there we have those all done. And now you're going to want to make this huge scythe weapon. So you're going to want to disconnect this whole assembly here, rotate this forward like that, and then what you're going to want to do is remove this whole top jaw section. You're going to get this whole piece, hinge this forward, and here we have another one of the accessories. I guess it's supposed to be like a sword or something, I'm not really sure. And then what you're going to want to do is use this hinge. There is a tab and a slot. Tab that into place, and this will just go right on top. And there we have the whole scythe fully complete. And now we have all the pieces. Let's bring out our figure. I thought I would bring out Impactor and put all the pieces on him. Of course, he is his pack mate. So what you're going to do is, I'm just going to, of course, go by the instructions. You can completely customize this however you wish. You just plug this one in right there. And then what you're going to do is plug this in his hand. And of course, it's going to get very heavy and big very fast. And this little sword or blade will go in this hand right here. And there we go. And then we're going to go to the back. And this will, of course, make him extremely back heavy. You're going to get on this whole piece. And of course, there is a port and peg. And this will just plug into place like that. And there we have his pack mate's Impactor fully weaponized with all the pieces from Spindle, looking very cool. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this mode, of course, because these are really just all the components just separated, so all the details really stay the same. And of course, I'm going to transform him to his robot mode and take a look at that in greater detail as well. So of course, he does have his small blade here and his giant, huge blade right here, which is huge, and I'm actually very glad he can actually support the weight. His arm doesn't droop down. Of course, he has these little grabbers, which you can maneuver however you wish. And this little armor piece on his shoulder. And of course, his shoulder cannon. So he is definitely well armed. So I think we're going to go into the transformation into the robot. Let's now get into transformation. Of course, I did start with all the pieces separated, so really just kind of plugging everything together. We're going to start at the bottom. Of course, we have the legs here and the torso section here. So you're just going to plug those into place just like that. Then what you're going to do is grab the torso, of course, just plug that in. Get this whole chest piece, plug that in as well, and there we go. Then you can get this shoulder piece, plug that in, and of course this other one, plug that in as well. And then you can get the arm, plug it in, and same for the other side. And there we have the robot fully complete, looking very, very cool. Let's take a look at the details. Here we have Spindle in his really cool looking robot mode. Let's take a look at the details. We're going to start at the very top with that head sculpt. Of course, some nice black for the face, some blue for the visor, and some silver for the chin. If you do look back, we actually have the top jaw behind his head, which actually looks super cool in that gold. Getting to this arm, of course, we have this nice gold and bronze for the shoulder, some more bronze for the hand, and purple for the forearm. And of course, this other arm is exactly the same, except this whole shoulder piece is completely different. It's this huge spine section. But as for the forearm and the hand, it's the exact same sculpt. Getting to the chest, of course, we have this nice skull design with some silver, some gunmetal gray, and some yellow, looking like a skull, which looks very cool. Getting to the belly section, of course, we have this whole rib cage piece, which looks really nice in that purple. And getting to the legs, we have some nice gunmetal gray in between those sections there, with some yellow or gold on top. We have the little dino arms done in purple, which you can position however you wish. And the feet are pretty simple and small, which can be kind of a pain to stand them sometimes, but typically it is pretty easy. Let's now get into articulation. Now for the articulation, of course, the head can rotate all the way around. It can look up and down. Also, you can move this little piece right here. Now for the arm, of course, it can also rotate all the way around, out and in. Of course, there is also a swivel here. And here there's also an elbow bend forward and back to a very good degree, of course. Also, there is a swivel here. You can also, of course, unfortunately these pieces do come off a little bit, so I do apologize for that. There's also a hinge here, and you can also, of course, open and close the hand. And that's pretty much it for the arms. Now for, of course, the waist, there is full rotation there. The leg can kick that far out, of course, that far forward, that far back, There is also a swivel here and here. There's also, of course, a outward movement and inward movement. There is also, of course, a slight knee bend. And unfortunately, there is no ankle pivot, and that's pretty much it for articulation. It is kind of wonky and a little bit fiddly for fossilizers, of course, because pieces are a little bit loose, especially on this copy. Unfortunately, the wrist rotation is actually very loose on this figure, so I'm going to go off to the off-cam, of course, straighten him up a little bit, and then we're going to get in a few comparisons. Starting off comparisons, here we have Spindle and Paleotrex. So as similarities go, of course, pretty much the entire bottom half of the figure is the exact same sculpt. Really, the top of the leg and the bottom leg where the feet is pretty much the exact same sculpt. As you can see, of course, near the forearm and the hand is the exact same sculpt, and the two shoulder pieces here are the exact same, but as you can see, the outer shoulder, of course, is much different sculpt-wise, and of course, the head sculpt is completely different. Also, the chest piece is a completely different sculpt as well. So really, of course, there's actually some very big changes. Of course, head sculpt, lots of big changes, but overall, I think they're two really cool-looking fossilizers. I'm actually really into the fossilizers, and some people aren't. There is a few problems I do have with the figure. There's actually several loose joints which I wish were fixed. Also, I kind of wish maybe this figure came with a special accessory. It does come with the same exact accessory that came with the other versions of this mold. Of course, as you can see, Paleotrex here comes with that same staff or sword, just in, of course, a different color. And it's not the greatest. It really is just the tip or part of the tail, which I think is kind of lame in his hand. It looks kind of weird. So I wish maybe this exclusive pack came with an exclusive accessory. That would be kind of nice. But that's pretty much it for this comparison. Let's now move on to one more. Here he is with his Packamate Impactor. I think this pack was actually pretty good. I think it's definitely worth a pickup. There is a few problems. I think it might just be my kind of copy thing, of course, with the sword. That's really for everyone. I just don't like it, in my opinion. Of course, some other people might. My main problem is I wish the joints were a little bit tighter where his hands are concerned, but that's really my main issue. That's pretty much it for this comparison. Let's now move on to the final. Let's now get into the final thoughts. Let's start in the robot mode. So my cons for the robot mode, the accessory is not the greatest. Of course, it is the exact same accessory that came with the previous versions of this mold. I know it does have to be included to, of course, complete the tail for the alt mode. I guess I just kind of wish this came with an extra accessory, because this is an Amazon exclusive pack, so I thought maybe they could have included something a little bit better, because if you watch my previous reviews with Transmutate, Skelevore, or Paleotrex, I kind of had a problem with the accessory. It looks kind of weird. It looks like he's just holding a stick. That's just my opinion. Getting to the other problem is I kind of wish a few of the joints were a little bit tighter where the wrists are concerned. You know, the figure has really good articulation. It's just whenever you're, you know, messing around with the figure, transforming it or anything like that, they pop off actually quite a bit. I actually had to redo several scenes of recording because pieces would keep popping off, usually the same area where the hands are. So I wish that was a little bit tighter. But getting to the pros, I think this figure is really well detailed. Of course, there's actually a lot of new molded pieces. Head sculpt is brand new. There's a brand new chest piece, and of course, there's also some brand new dino arms, but of course that comes into play in the ult mode. But yeah, I think the new head sculpt really makes a world of difference, and it actually looks super cool with the whole dino jaw on his the back of his head. That actually looks super cool. Let's now get into, of course, articulation. Actually very good, of course, typical for a fossilizer. There's a lot of hinges and pegs and stuff because it pretty much breaks into a ton of different pieces, which, of course, at that plus can also be a minus, because since there are so many areas where it can break apart, it can actually get very loose, which really just goes back to my other point. There's some areas on this figure that are actually really loose, which is unfortunate. But of course, if you wanted to, you could use some floor polish. I typically do not customize my figures. I just typically keep them how they are because I'm not into modifying. But if you want to, go ahead. Let's now get into transformation. Of course, there really isn't much. You kind of just rip it apart and just kind of stick it back together in the alt mode, so it's nothing complicating or anything. Of course, it is pretty much the exact same transformation as Paleotrex, so if you have that figure, you know exactly what to do here. I actually really do like the alt mode. It actually also does show a lot of new molded pieces. Again, of course, new dino head. The whole spine section is brand new. And again, that other chest piece is brand new. Of course, the tail and the legs are the exact same sculpt, but they're still pretty cool. Very bony, very realistic. Love the rib cage and everything. All the really nice bone design. They did an amazing job. And again, of course, that brand new dino head looks super thin and long, and actually looks super cool with all the silver and purple teeth. Looks really nice and menacing. And overall, that's a pretty cool looking dino mode. I actually really do like the fossilizers. I'm a big fan of them, and I actually have amassed quite a big collection of them, and I hope they do more in the future. I know they do have a mammoth one coming up in the last pack I need, and I'm really looking forward to that. So of course, stay tuned for that review. And of course, I'll just quickly get into the articulation for the dino mode. Actually, it's pretty good, of course, because the legs of the dino are actually the arms and legs of the robot, so pretty much everything you have here is really put into that, and there's some pretty cool poses you can put the dinosaurs into, which is really good. Getting into, of course, the weaponized mode, I'll quickly go over that. It's nothing crazy, of course. You can create a really cool axe and a sword and those huge grabber arms, which is super cool. My only complaint is, unfortunately, of course, the grabber arms are actually very loose because they are, again, the arms and legs from the robot mode, so they're kind of loose and they do kind of droop down a little bit, which is a shame, but that's not really, I would say, a design flaw. It's just I kind of wish the joints were a little bit tighter. But overall, I actually do like this figure. There's no huge complaints, just a few areas, like the accessory could be a little bit better, or it could come with more because this is an exclusive. Also, the joints could be a little bit tighter, but that's my only complaint. I actually think this is probably my favorite version of this mold so far. Probably my second favorite would be Paleotrix. I actually really do like his skull face, and this one actually looks super nice. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below. Of course, I did review Impactor, the other figure in this pack, in a separate video, so if you want to see that, of course, make sure you stay tuned for the channel. Of course, it could already be up. I'm not entirely sure when I'm going to post these, not in specific order, so make sure you stay tuned on my channel, look for that, and of course, hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of this figure in the comment section down below, and I'll see you next.